Hi, my name is Michael Sipos, and I'm the UF IFAS Extension Florida Sea Grant Agent in Collier County. And today I'm going to show you how to cook one of the dishes that I've cooked a bunch of times before, and it's one of my favorites. It's Panko fried mangrove snapper with a apricot pineapple sauce, and I'm also going to put a little bit of wild rice in there with it. So let's get started. I'm going to just go over some of the ingredients and start with the recipe. So first of all, you're going to need your mangrove snapper or any sort of white fish seafood out there. You could use tilapia, you could use different species of snapper, grouper. I caught this fish myself. There's a fillet video out there. That was about a 4.5 pound fish, and it yielded about 1.25 pounds, 1.25 pounds or so of fillet. So it gives you an idea of what you get out of a fish. You're going to need some Panko breadcrumbs. You are going to need some milk for your egg wash. You're going to need 2 eggs for your egg wash. You're also going to need some flour. And I like to put either salt, or if you have some sort of seasoning that has a high salt content, like Everglades seasoning, I like to put that into my flour mixture. And then you're also going to need your oil for your frying. So I'm going to show you how to use both a deep fryer that I have, a small one, and also how to do it in a pan. So it gives you 2 different options. If you have one available and you don't have a deep fryer, you could also use a pan and some oil. So this is canola oil. You could use vegetable oil. Don't use olive oil. I do have olive oil here, which I'm going to put in my wild rice. So that's something that you can do. And then for your apricot pineapple mixture that you want to make, that sauce or topping, you're going to need some pineapple bits, either circular pineapple or these little cuttings, or you could use even crushed pineapple. It just depends, because you're going to put it in a food processor anyway, so your level of processing and sort of making it liquefied is up to you, whether you want to have it more of a sauce or more of a topping. Then you're going to need apricot preserves, and then you're going to also need some apricot halves. So that's what you're going to put for your sauce. And let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to put my fish and my milk in the refrigerator until we're ready to use that. And we're going to get started first with the wild rice. So with the wild rice, I actually found out that you can put it in your rice cooker if you have one. You could use stovetop if you want it. There's a lot of instructions on there if you want to do your stovetop method, but this is easy. You just sort of set it and forget it. So I'm going to follow the instructions that are on the box, which is basically use about 1 3/4 cup of water and a tablespoon of butter or olive oil. So let me add this to my rice cooker. And this is a steamer. It's not really a pressure cooker or anything. So it'll bring it to a boil and sort of let it set. It's important when you add all your ingredients in here that you give it a good stir. Otherwise, sort of the seasoning will float on top and not sort of be mixed into the rice when it's actually cooking. So that was 1 3/4 cup. So I got this here. Put it here. I'm gonna get a spoon. Get a little mix. I'm gonna put a little drizzle of olive oil in there. That should be good to go. So I'm going to put this right over here and plug it in. And compared to a regular white rice, I'm going to put it on the white rice setting. You might get a little bit of sticking to the bottom. You can sort of open it towards the end of the cycle and give it a good stir so it doesn't stick to the bottom. this is not a pressure cooker. This is a steamer or a rice cooker. Do not open a pressure cooker. You can open this towards the end. I might do so, I might not, but if you have a pressure cooker, don't open that. So let's go ahead and get started with making our egg wash and our flour mixture that you're going to use in order to bread your fish. So you're going to first put it in flour, and then you're going to put it in your egg wash, and then you're going to press the Panko breadcrumbs in there. So let's get our let's do our flour mixture first. So I just have regular white flour here. Oh, and before I get started, like every good recipe starts, we're gonna wash our hands. That's proper food safety right there. And let me emphasize that my fish, I already cleaned it, I already processed it, already washed it and dried it. If you do so and you're gonna cut up some other stuff, make sure that you have separate cutting boards for your fish and you have separate cutting boards for your vegetables or whatever you want to prepare with this dish. So I washed my hands. Okay, so let's add some more flour in here. There's gonna be about maybe a cup of flour or so. This dish will feed anywhere from like 2 to 4 people, just depending on how hungry your people are. I'm going to add the Everglades seasoning to it. You're not going to be able to really notice it too much, but you can always add salt to taste after you fry it if you want to. But I'm going to put that in this mixture right here. Give it a little dash. And then I'm going to start on my egg wash mixture, and this is going to be the first step of your frying, or your second step of your frying process. The first step is going to be roll around your fish in the flour, then you're going to put it in your egg wash, then you'll put it in your breadcrumbs. So I have 2 eggs here. Crack that in there. And then I am going to go ahead and get my milk. And you're going to use about anywhere from a half cup to a cup of milk in here. I'll go ahead and grab my fish at this time, put it up here and let it wait. We're going to get to that very shortly. You'll have your eggs and your milk, and you want to sort of whisk them together. And this is going to really help to get that panko to stick to the fish. Okay, so there you go. That's how it should look. And then next up, we're gonna get our larger bowl and get our panko breadcrumbs ready for our fish. And if you use a bowl for your flour and your panko mixture, I recommend one with like a more of a flatter bottom so you can really press that in there. A lot of people are like, hey, how do you get your fried fish so good? And my key and my secret ingredient is using a lot of pressure to really press those breadcrumbs in there to prevent them from, flaking off into the oil, and have them to adhere to the fish really well. And for my deep fryer, I actually have this little aquarium net. This is not a net that I use in my aquarium. This is a separate net. It's a very fine mesh because this is used for brine shrimp. And I will sort of filter that oil a little bit just to get all like that tidbits of burnt up breadcrumbs in there previously, so you can sort of reuse your oil mixture and you're not limited to just a one-time use. Okay, so I got my breadcrumbs here, got my flour, got my eggs, and now I will actually start my oil up a little bit. And for your oil, you're going to want it to be about on 6 to 7. And I'll go ahead and grab my pan real quick. I'm just using a regular pan. just depending on your thickness of your fillet is how much you should fill it. So this pan, I'm going to fill it to about half the thickness of the fillet, maybe a little bit less, because as you add those the fish in the pan, it's going to displace that oil and it's going to cover it on top. So I'm going to go ahead and add my oil, and I'll start heating that up maybe halfway through the process of breading. You don't want to get your oil heated up too soon, because you can sort of superheat that mixture even at a lower temperature. So there's my oil. I'm going to put this here. And I'll start my deep fryer now, because that's a little bit more volume that you have to deal with. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. An easy way of doing this is just having some sort of baking sheet ready to, put your prepared fish on. Like I said, the key, actually I'm going to go ahead and start my oil for my pan, because I don't really have too much right now, so it should be able to heat up quickly and I'll be ready to fry my fish. So I'm going to put it on medium, and then I'm going to bump it up to about 6 or 7. It just really depends on your range that you have. If you have some sort of stovetop that uses natural gas, that's going to heat the oil up much faster. And a good rule of thumb is just fry one piece of fish first. Don't fry them all at once. Make sure that oil is the correct temperature before you put all your eggs in one basket. So here you go. I am getting my mangrove snapper and I am pushing it into the flour. And like I said, the more pressure sort of you use, the better it sort of comes out in terms of having both the flour and the panko to stick to the fish. I put it in my egg wash mixture, cover it on top, and then use your knuckles. I am pressing those breadcrumbs into the fillet. And this is how it should look. I am getting hungry just looking at it. So the reason I actually cook this dish so many times is that mangrove snapper has really followed me through my angling career. You can find them in 1 foot of water in the back bays. You can find them in 100 foot of water offshore. They start their life offshore. They're spawned anywhere from April to November, with peak spawning occurring during the summer months, especially around the full moon, when the bite is actually pretty legendary. They're really fun to catch. And after they turn into larvae, they sort of move inshore, and they'll live among the mangroves and move offshore to those reefs, wrecks, and rocky habitat as they grow in size and age. We call a mangrove snapper down here in Southwest Florida. If you go anywhere in the Panhandle, they don't really have too many mangroves, so they call them gray snapper or black snapper. I've heard of other people calling them mangoes before. That's a popular name. So if you hear mangrove snapper, black snapper, gray snapper, they might be talking about the same snapper. So I am covering these up and pressing those breadcrumbs in there. So this is a good fish if you're concerned with sustainability too. The IUCN has, they don't really have any immediate concerns regarding the population of mangrove snapper yet. And also the Monterey Bay Seafood Watch has listed them as best and good alternatives if you're looking in terms of making a pick of sustainability in terms of what kind of seafood you're going to use for this dish. The mangrove snapper is a fish that gets sexual maturity within about 2 years of age, and that'll occur anywhere from 7 to about 13 inches or so. And I'm pushing this fish into the breadcrumbs, and if I'm noticing any spots that are sort of barren, I'll cover it with more breadcrumbs and push that in with my knuckles. So, I partition this into being sort of like a nugget or small fillet shapes. These aren't the size of like a normal fillet. This is sort of the back portion of one. If you have a thicker fillet, pressing it down can really help with sort of spreading it apart, and it helps you be able to cook it a little bit more thoroughly, a little bit more quicker, because it's exposed to more heating surface of the oil. This is a very versatile fish. Another recipe that I really enjoy doing with it is using blackened mangrove snapper and putting it on a Kaiser roll with like some red onion or sweet onion and some ketchup and mustard. Oh my gosh, that's so good. It's a favorite. Okay. We're almost done here. Good thing I started that oil up because we might have to wait a little bit, but after I'm done breading this fish, I'm going to move it over to the cooking surface area, and I will start with our sauce that we're going to make. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit more Panko in this. So there's different regulations for mangrove snapper if you're fishing in either federal waters or state waters. So federal waters in the Gulf is 9 nautical miles offshore, while state waters is anything within that. Federal waters for the Atlantic is anything 3 miles offshore, and state is anything in that. So in state waters, the limit for mangrove snapper in 2020 right now, let's just say they haven't changed yet, is 10 inches minimum size limit, which is maximum total length, which is a pinch tail size measurement, and you're allowed 5 per person, while that's 5 per person in a 10 snapper aggregate. And federal waters, it's 12 inches minimum size limit, maximum total length, which is a pinch tail measurement, and you're allowed 10 per person, and that's in your 10 per person snapper aggregate. This is our last piece. Okay, so there it is. That one's sort of falling apart right there. Put this here. I'm going to dump my excess in the trash. Move it over to the sink. And this is what you're dealing with right here. Ready for the fryer. But the oil is probably not ready right now, so we're going to put it right over here and wait for that to be done. In the meantime, I'm going to get started with our apricot pineapple sauce, but beforehand I am going to wash my hands. That egg wash and flour mixture is going to stick to your fingers as much as it's going to stick to those fillets, so it might take you a little bit to get all that off. The IGFA record for mangrove snapper actually occurred in Louisiana, and that was 18 pounds 10 ounces, while the Florida record is 17 pounds, I believe. So that gives you a good idea of how big these fish can get. Inshore, a typical really good mangrove snapper might be about 2 pounds. Offshore, it can range from 2 to 10 pounds, really is pretty common. So here we go. I am going to get my food processor. I have a Ninja right here. You can use a hand one, you can use a bunch of different things. And we're going to get started with our apricot pineapple mixture. So I have my pineapple tidbits, and then I have my apricot halves and my apricot preserves. And you can mix them in different ratios. Really, I like to do, usually I cook a lot more fish at one time, but for this, let's just say we're going to use about a half cup of crushed pineapple bits, half cup of apricot halves, and let's do a third cup of apricot preserves. And these are all approximate measurements. I'm going to eyeball it. And this is a great sauce. You can, store it in the refrigerator in your mixing container that you have and use it for different kind of recipes out there. Some people like to add a little bit of spice to it, and they'll put some red pepper flakes in there, and you're more than welcome to do that. Okay. Got my pineapple peeled. Got my apricot peeled. And let me pour a little bit of that liquid out. And it's up to you on how much you want to actually process this. If you do it more, if you leave it on like the food processor more, it's going to be more liquidy. If you do it a little bit rougher, it's going to be more of a chopped kind of topping. It's up to you. I like to have a little bit in between where you can lather it on top of the fish, but it won't sort of soak in that much. And that apricot preserves is sort of going to help you bind that together and prevent it from being a little bit watery, and that's why I sort of drained it a little bit. So I am going to ladle that in, and like I said, I'm going to do about a half cup of pineapple, half cup of apricot, and about a third cup of that the preserves, the apricot preserves. This is going to be more than enough for your meal of about that 1.25 pound fillet of snapper that you have going on. So you might need to save some for later. Okay. I got my mixture right over here. I am going to wash my spoon off. I'll use a spoon later. Give it a little shake, put it in my food processor, and I'm going to pulse it. Give it a little shake, and that's all you need. So it actually turned out a little bit more liquidy. That's all right. Oh man, that smells great. That's what it looks like. Go ahead and put this in the refrigerator until we're ready to use it. Okay, so our next step will be to fry our fish. So I'm going to move the camera over to our frying station. We can see how we're doing over there. Okay guys, so we might be ready to fry. It looks like that the oil is pretty hot for the pan. You're going to need a spatula, and we can see if the oil for the deep fryer is going to be ready as well. So we're going to do one each, and we're going to see what cooks a little bit quicker. I think the deep fryer will, because you're sort of immersing it, while this is going to be cooking approximately half at a time. It looks hot. The first one might actually get a little bit burned. Let's see how it goes. Oh, okay, that looks like a good temperature. So let's do one at a time for a little test batch. Yeah, so that's, the oil got a little bit too hot right there, so it's a good thing that we just tested it with one. So oil temperature is also going to drop a little bit as you add your snapper in there. I decrease the temperature to prevent it from burning any additional ones. And let's see how these both go. So I dropped it to about 4 or so. It was on medium prior to that. And a good tip that I have is using a paper plate with some paper towel to put your snapper fillets after they cook on there, to make sure that it's really easier just for cleanup. Okay, so this one's cooking pretty thoroughly. This one is actually looking like it's a little overcooked on that side, but that's okay because it will lower the temperature just from having something in there to cook with. So this might take a little bit of time, so we might use some movie magic in the process of producing this video and this segment. The tricky part is going to be actually to make sure that your breadcrumbs won't burn while before your fish is cooked. And the way you do so is just, sort of heating up everything as you're ready for it. We might have took a little bit more time than needed to create our mixture and bread our fish than I normally would if I wasn't narrating it, but it will turn out delicious all the same. And that's why we do one piece at a time initially. Okay, that is well done right there. So I'm going to drop the temperature on that, but our deep fryer is looking really good. So let's hope that the temperature drops a little bit, and I am going to put a couple fillets in there. I'm just going to drop it down a little bit, and we can continue cooking. And depending on what size of a pan and what size of a burner you have, you might have some hotter spots than cooler spots, depending on the contact you have with the pan surface to the range. So, be conscious of that, and you might have to move your fillets around a little bit as you're frying them. These are definitely going to turn out better than the first one that I cooked in the pan. Look at this. Oh, that is perfect in the deep fryer. I'll let it drip out a little bit, and then I'm going to add it with my other fish. But first, I'm going to show you what consistency I like it to be cooked at. And that is that level of brownness right there. I'm going to load up my fryer basket. Have half in the pan, half in the deep fryer, and we'll see how they turn out. If you're concerned with burning them, you can periodically flip them to make sure that one surface isn't getting more contact than the other. But those are going to turn out great. Okay, let's go ahead and flip these over one last time, and I think that's going to be the last flip for these. little bit more time. Bump up that temperature a little bit, back up on the fried fish in the pan. Like I said, that oil might have got superheated as I was heating it without anything in there, and the heat gets absorbed into the fish as you add that, so it drops the temperature a little bit, especially if your fish is a little cool. So that's why you always do a test piece first. Should be done there. Another good thing about using a deep fryer compared to a pan is that it sort of separates the charred bits that you have from the fish, because you're hanging in a basket compared to being in direct contact with the actual fish fillets. If you're doing a lot of fish at one time, you might, your level of darkness of it might be a little bit darker because of the charred bits will sort of float up and cover the fillets. If you're doing like in a pan, you might also have to add oil as your fish is sort of soaking up that oil and using it up. So when you do add your oil, you want to make sure you give it a little bit of time to reheat back up, otherwise your fish is sort of going to be swimming inside the oil instead of frying. Keep those tips in mind. This is another batch of fried fish there. I unplugged my deep fryer because all our fish is left over in our pan right here. So as I was cooking, I bumped up the temperature back to about that medium level or so. Because like I said, if you add fish in there, it's going to lower the temperature just from sort of soaking up that heat capacity of the oil. Turn my burner off, move my pan off to the side, put that here, and there you have it. That is Panko fried fish. And let's move over to the table and we will plate this. Okay, so our rice is done, our fish is fried, we have our sauce. The only thing to do is plate it. And I always like garnishes and making it look fancy. So let's get a little bit of lime. We are going to cut this lime into quarters. And then score the lime down laterally, just making little incisions down the lime. Just it helps with squeezing it. Get our fish right here, but first, let's get some rice. Make a little nice platform for the fish. Get our fish fillet. get a spoon. Sauce. A little bit on the side, and also drizzle it on top. You're gonna want a lot of this sauce. A little spritz of lime. There you have it. This is your Panko fried snapper with apricot pineapple sauce with some wild rice. And I am super excited to eat it. I'm going to do so shortly. So stay tuned, watch some more seafood at your fingertips. Try catching some mangrove snapper, buying it from your local seafood house. And yeah, it's an easy recipe to learn. It's a crowd favorite, and thanks for watching.